Welcome into Pallilo Points. I'm Brandon Strange, Sports Map Houston. That's Charlie Pallilo. You can catch him on the Charlie Pallilo Show weekdays from 10 to noon on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. If you haven't yet, please hit subscribe on this channel. We do appreciate the support. Charlie, welcome in. It has been a while. And on this channel, we didn't really get to cover the Rockets' winning streak last week because the Texans were too busy giving us more boneheaded personnel decisions to react to. And since the streak, the Rockets have dropped a couple of games to the Bucks and Grizzlies, respectively. Now, normally a rebuilding team starts playing better, and it's due to its young core starting to gel. But what's interesting with the Rockets during this run is that in large part, it's been without Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. What are you seeing as to the relationship to the absence of those two young guys and the uptick in the Rockets playing?
Yeah, it is. It's not so much curious, I guess, as the reality of the situation. As NBA players right now, 2021-22 NBA, Kevin Porter Jr. is not good. Jalen Green is terrible. By the standard of starters playing heavy minutes, their shooting percentages are awful. Kevin Porter Jr. is not a natural point guard. Jalen Green, defensively, is often clueless, which, while in the very near term can be frustrating, and when you're losing 15 in a row and you're 1-16, oh my goodness, this is embarrassing. These are the growing pains, right? This is the embryonic stage of a rebuild. OJT's a big part of it. So the Rockets win the 7 in a row. It's not as if it was a coincidence that Jalen Green went down injured during the first quarter of the first win, and 2 weeks later they hadn't lost again yet. It's not entirely because Jalen Green went down, but they became a better team with Jalen Green not having an average night of 7 of 18 from the floor, 2 of 7 from 3, poor defense. Garrison Matthews has been a better NBA player this season. So there's your small picture. Of course, with the Rockets, in terms of 21-22, a lost cause. They have no chance to be good, be any sort of playoff threat or factor. Right? What matters about this season is the development of Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., and Christian Wood's much further along in the process. But if you're hoping to re-sign him, right, Wood is up after next year. Those are supposed to be the 3 points on the triangle of the Rockets building toward credibility and eventually being good again. So you have kind of competing principles. I mean, they were going to lose, especially once they started playing road games where they're Rocket road kill, right? 1-12 starting the week on their road games. 6 of the 7 wins were at home. The only road win was at Oklahoma City, which is probably worse than the Rockets overall right now. But that while you were winning, if you were still somehow doing nothing but winning and Jalen Green's ready to play, well, do you put him back in there? Do you upset the apple cart? Yeah, you upset the apple cart because this is about the long game for the Rockets. And unless you had some sort of attitude problem or insubordination, when Porter and Green are healthy and ready to go, they play big minutes. No disrespect to DJ Augustine and Garrison Matthews and anyone else getting playing time in those guys' absence. But it's about accelerating their growth curve or just having their growth curve move along at whatever process it's going to move along.
Now, one of their young core that has been an exciting bright spot has been Alperen Sengun. And he's been averaging 18 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists per 36. Not to mention that he is second in the league behind Mobley in defensive points saved for rookies. But what limits his minutes is that 6 fouls per 36. Talk about what you're seeing out of Alperen Sengun and how he factors into this rebuild.
Well, a very polished skill level for such a young guy. He is 19 years old. His game is much more mature than Jalen Green's. Or I would submit Kevin Porter Jr.'s. He played at a high level, a Turkish league MVP at a very young age. He reminds me, and I'm not saying he's going to go on to become a Hall of Famer, but I see a little Pau Gasol in Sengun with his footwork, his patience with the ball. Some of his passing skills are very sharp. You know, let's not equate him to Nikola Jokic just yet, but very promising. Of course, like any relationship, compatibility is critical. And when he's on the floor together with Christian Wood, it's just a mess. Defensively, they don't work. Christian Wood's mobile for a 5. He's not really mobile for a 4. It does not work. Floor spacing and so forth. So over the next year and a half, do they get to a point where, all right, Sengun, he's not going to fly through the air and block shots and recover from 20 feet away like, say, a young Dwight Howard or Hakeem Olajuwon for 15 years. But could the Rockets get to a point where, Christian Wood becomes an interesting trade asset, or you're not getting the vibes that he's going to recommit here long term, and Şengün is the 5? And where do the Rockets wind up in the 2022 lottery if they can get a Paolo Banchero, the Duke kind of prototype spread 4 for the modern age? If he could pair well with Şengün, what would that mean for the Rockets' plans with Wood, or vice versa, Wood Şengün? But Şengün's been very impressive, but generally has played less during the winning streak. But at least he's not Daniel Tice, who, unless Wood is injured, has stopped playing basically altogether, or had during the winning streak.
And another one of those big keys during that streak was having a veteran point guard guiding the offense down the stretch. Eric Gordon, as of this recording, is shooting 43% behind 3, which is his best percentage since 2015, and the second highest of his career. Rockets winning some games this year, as you mentioned, it's a feel-good story in the short term. If they flip Eric Gordon and get another young player to add to this rebuild, that's a feel-good story in the big picture. And tracking Gordon's value feels like it's like tracking cryptocurrency. But presuming he's healthy, when do you anticipate the Rockets deal him, and what do you anticipate being a realistic return for him?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if you can get any more than a protected first round or a 20 and later type first round pick. But that's okay, because the only teams who would figure to have interest in Eric Gordon would be contenders looking for a shooter, because like relief pitching in baseball, you can never have enough shooting in basketball. And a rebuilding team, what does it want with Eric Gordon, who turns 33 years old Christmas Day, has $18 million left on his contract next year. So maybe the Rockets have to take back some contractual dead weight in addition to getting the draft pick. But that's okay, because it's not going to be a long-term contract. Good for Eric Gordon, as opposed to, I'm not saying John Wall's been a bad egg, but, well, I don't want to play at all until now I do want to play to make my $44 million. That Eric Gordon has been showing up every night, other than a foolish act where he got himself ejected in one of the games last week. He's been really solid. He is a professional, and whether he has thought to himself, let's just be a pro, shoot the ball well, and I'll get out of here without doing a James Harden or even a PJ Tucker to pout his way out, a Zach Cunningham to brood and punk his way out. So props to Eric Gordon. The shooting skill plays. Team's probably not in a rush to acquire him sooner than later. Let some time click off the calendar and let a few more million tick off that contract. But when the trade deadline arrives in early February, I think there now should be a market for Eric Gordon with just the 1 year remaining after this one.